Welcome back to discuss a very busy day of news. I'm joined now by Nebraska Republican Congressman Don Bacon. Congressman Bacon, thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me back.
Well, it's always great to talk to you, Congressman. Let's talk about yet another historic meeting at the White House between President Trump and President Zelensky. President Zelensky saying that he was there to push President Trump to give Ukraine those long-range Tomahawk missiles. President Trump seemed hesitant. We don't know exactly what came from that meeting or where things ended, but what were your takeaways based on what you saw, and how critical do you think the Tomahawk missiles are to Ukraine?
We'll hear more details soon, but that's my main takeaway. The president had been signaling that he wanted to send Tomahawks to Ukraine. I think they're needed. And then after yesterday's phone call with Putin and the meeting today, it sounds like he's waffling on that potential delivery of these weapons. These weapons are needed because they're long range, they're very precise, they'll allow the Ukrainians to hit the energy, the oil production and the power generation that Ukraine's been hitting in recent weeks, and they've been very effective at it. But these cruise missiles will give them longer range. And what we got to do is we got to convince Putin he cannot win. And delivering these weapons and doing secondary sanctions on countries that are propping up the war economy of Putin, these things are needed to end the war. And it really baffles me. I see the president doing so well with Israel, Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah. I give him A marks on that whole area. I mean, it's been very impressive. But then when you look at what he's doing with Ukraine and Russia, it's very weak. And he doesn't seem to be able to see with moral clarity who's at fault in this war, and that Putin's the invader, Putin's a bad man, and he keeps giving another lifeline at every junction to Putin. And I really don't understand it. How he can be so good at one area and then so, I would just say, weak when it comes to Russia and Ukraine.
And do you see this meeting in Budapest as another lifeline? Do you think it's possible to get a deliverable from that meeting, Congressman?
Well, I'm pessimistic. I mean, something good could happen, but Putin is not interested in peace. He's interested in stretching or tapping along President Trump, trying to delay decisions while he bombs Ukrainian cities every night and goes after he's bombed over 900 hospitals and medical facilities, since he started this war. He's going after civilians. He's trying to terrorize civilians. He's trying to wear Ukraine down. And meanwhile, he keeps dragging President Trump along. President Trump should come in with the iron fist. And so we're going to deliver these cruise missiles. We're going to deliver ATACMS. We're going to give later version of the F-16s. We're going to help train their F-16 pilots. And we're going to do secondary sanctions against Russia. And we got to convince Putin he can't win. But he's vacillating and just has this ambiguity. And all it does is, I think, strengthen Putin's hand. I feel for President Zelensky and our NATO allies who have total moral clarity with what's going on here. I just wish our president had that same clarity.
All right, well, I want to shift gears a little bit, talk about another conflict, your reaction to the U.S. strikes on alleged drug cartel boats in the Caribbean. Do you believe the administration has given Congress enough information to determine whether strikes are legal, or do you think the president needs to get sign-off from Congress?
I would say yes to both. I'm not necessarily opposed to doing these strikes, but the president should come to the Congress, and he has to show that with no shadow of a doubt that we have a legal, constitutional way for doing this, that we're protected, legally. But also he's got to convince us that we have the intelligence that we're 100% sure these boats are shipping narcotics or fentanyl. That said, it's not a big stretch to go from going after terrorists like we have, and going after these narco organizations that are delivering fentanyl to our country. We have to remember 100,000 Americans are dying a year from this. I've lost 3 brothers to overdoses or drug abuse. I'm the oldest of 9. And I see the scars, not just in my own family, but tons of people I've worked with. They've lost a loved one or a coworker. And so these drugs are taking a terrible toll. And I think it is time that we take it this serious. But I'm not convinced we've done all the homework legally, or at least they haven't convinced Congress of this yet. And we've got to know that for 100% sure we have the right intelligence. But I think if you can do both, there will be general support in Congress.
Well, I am so sorry to hear that you have lost 3 brothers. That is absolutely devastating to hear, Congressman. So thank you for sharing that very personal note as well. I do want to turn to another topic, this report from Politico about hundreds of pages of chats between some leaders of young Republican groups. They contain racist, anti-Semitic, violent language. The New York and Kansas chapters are being disbanded in the wake of this. What was your reaction to seeing that report? And do you think disbanding these groups is the right move?
Well, anybody that put any of that ugly trash in these chats should be fired if they're in any position of authority. So if they're in the Young Republicans, they should be removed immediately. If they've been hired subsequently in the administration or another political person's office, they should be fired. There should be zero tolerance for this kind of stuff. And it was gross stuff. There was no defense of it. I know one of our leaders said, hey, they're young, but they're not young. We have people in there that were 30 years old putting these messages out there. And we should be the party that has zero tolerance for that kind of behavior. And, you know, this is being juxtaposed against the attorney general's race in Virginia, where the Democrat nominee has all these, you know, saying he wanted the Speaker of the Virginia House to be assassinated, for his wife to see her children die. And we're going after the Virginia Democrats because they have not been clear. They have not asked them to step down and they didn't remove their endorsements. So we got to compare very clear response on our side, saying there is zero tolerance for we see it on our side. And we compare that to what the Democrats are doing in Virginia or other places. So when we don't do that, it weakens our hand.
And we will be discussing both of those issues because you're absolutely right. That is a significant issue in the Virginia Attorney General's race as well. Before I let you go, though, I do, Congressman, want to ask you about day 17 of the shutdown. Both sides seem to be equally dug in. The House is out of session yet another week. Do you see an off-ramp here, Congressman? How does this end and when does this end?
Well, I thought I saw a clear off-ramp, particularly with Senator Thune, Majority Leader Thune, who I admire. He's from South Dakota. I get to fly with him quite a bit. He's a great man. He's been willing to negotiate with the Democrats, particularly in the Senate, but I would say in the House as well, on these ACA COVID-era tax credits. Most Republicans don't want to see these just fully expire. We'd like them reformed. We think there should be income caps. We think they should be targeted. We got to do it in the appropriations process because it's got to be part of the appropriations bill that requires 60 votes in the Senate, which means it has to be bipartisan. I think Thune is trying to go that direction. I would hope the Democrats would take them up on these negotiations to get that done. But as I brought this up with my colleagues across the aisle, some of them, even the more moderate ones, have made clear to me they're not really interested. This is really more about their base and the hate they have for President Trump, to show their base that they're fighting back. That's a tougher thing to negotiate from my vantage point. We're going to have President Trump for 3 more years. We got to find a way to work together, and we can't have a 3-year shutdown. And so I don't see a clear path for the Democrats this is more about President Trump and going after him. Now, if they have some narrow things like the COVID tax credits, I think we can get that done. And I think John Thune has shown a willingness to do it. And I think that may be the way out of this thing.
All right. Congressman Don Bacon, we covered a lot of ground today on a very busy News Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you do have a wonderful weekend.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.